Hi, and welcome to Meeples on Meeples episode 99. I'm Brian, and before we get started with our review this week, I'd like to just remind you to please follow and like us on Facebook as well as Twitter, and of course subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can see all of our future videos. This week's game of the week is Magic Maze. Before we get too far into it, let's go in closer, take a look at how it plays, and then we'll come back for my thoughts. So here's the setup for a four-player game, scenario 2. Each scenario, by the way, tells you exactly what tile to start with and which tiles to put in the draw pile. You start with all 4 pawns in the middle, and each player, this is a 4-player game, is going to get a card. So in this game, one player is going to move in this direction, and they're going to be in charge of the search action. That's all that player does, and they can do it with any pawn, because there are no turns, which I'll explain better in a second. This player can only move in that direction, and they are in charge of teleporting characters when on the correct spot. This person can go in this direction, and they're in charge of moving up and down escalators. And this person can move in this direction, and that's their only job, so we usually give this one to Ian. No offense, Ian. But actually, it's a good idea to maybe have that person be the clock watcher as well when you turn the sand timer over. But the gist of the game is once you start it, you flip over the sand timer, and you are trying to move these pawns around this shopping mall to shoplift what they need. So let's say I had my players sitting over here. First off, the red north arrows, so they all make sure their cards are facing the same direction. Because if my players are sitting around the table like that, then you can see that the top player can only move these pawns in this direction. This player over here can only move pawns in this direction, this person in that direction, and then this person can move them down. That way, nobody gets confused. So once the timer is turned over and the sand is going, you just can grab and start moving pawns. You can move a pawn as far as you want in the direction you can move them, but only in the direction that you are allowed to move them. So if I can move down, I know that orange wants to get here. So I can move him down. He hits a wall, or if he hits another pawn, he's got to stop. Now, this player can't move him anymore, because now the pawn needs to move over this direction to get to that orange spot. This player would have to see, oh, they need to do that, and this player would maybe move them over. And then this player also has the warp icon that we're not on that. This player would then have to activate the search icon. So then this player would grab the next tile, and they line up the white arrow, this door, to go into an unexplored icon. And then this player can move him down as far as he wants, but you can never move him back. If you go too far, didn't want to do that, then you have to wait for this player to move him back up. But the gist of it is everybody's just grabbing pawns whenever they feel like it's there, they need to do something, and they are moving the pawns. So meanwhile, while these two players have been focusing on orange, because really we've just been doing orange down, over, down, these other guys, this person might say, oh, I want to move yellow up. So this player could be grabbing yellow at the same time. There's the explore icon. They need to wait for this person to see that yellow needs to explore. This person would then explore the next, and only this person can do this because they have that ability. See, besides moving, there's the search ability, meaning search a new tile, lay a new tile, so only this player can do that. Only this player can teleport. If orange is on this teleport symbol, this player can teleport them to another orange teleport symbol anywhere on the map. This player can only move them in this direction, and as you can see, there's escalators. So if yellow is waiting at the bottom of the escalator, we need this player, to move them up to the top of the escalator. So there will come times when we're waiting to move yellow up the escalator, and this player over here is just not paying attention and not getting it. So then somebody else might grab and go and tap it in front of them. And they're like, what? Can't talk during this game, but they're like, I don't know. And you just keep tapping to them, you need to do something. That's your way of signaling, we need you to act. And they look around until they finally get like, oh, I see, they're waiting for me to move yellow. I'll move yellow. So this is your form of communication, is you tap this like crazy and give dirty looks until they get the hint and they move. So one player's bringing out the new tiles, one person's in charge of escalators, one person's in charge of teleporting. The other symbols, you see this sand timer down here. If you can get somebody on the sand timer, that's your chance to flip the sand timer. Of course, it had already run out. They would have lost the game. Flip the sand timer, and you can go. Now, this is the one time everybody can stop moving, and you can briefly talk and plan. Now, you're losing time here, but this is your one time where you can maybe communicate if things are not going well. And then everybody starts moving them again. So eventually what is going to happen, though, is I'm just going to build up the map. You're going to slowly explore them all. And you're going to slowly reveal until you finally find, let's see here, a couple of more symbols. There's the exit, which you'll need, but there we go, the shoplifting. This potion here is where purple needs to eventually end up to steal the items they need. So once you get purple there, you kind of have to wait until everybody else gets to where they need to be. Oh, the orange axe for the warriors way up there. You eventually need to get the barbarian there. Now we got 2 of our people on there. Now everybody's working together. Somebody move him here, somebody move this person down, and you go around and you have to discover everybody else's. Let's see here. We've got, here's the yellow. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the dwarf, by the way. The yellow is the barbarian. So the barbarian needs to be on what he's stealing, and then eventually, whoops, gotta line them up correctly. You always line the arrow up with it. And then eventually, the elf is going to end up where the elf needs to be. Once you do that, you can flip this, everybody steals, and now you can no longer teleport. You flip this over showing teleportation is done, and you need to actually run them, and you need to get green to the green exit, which is way down here, and then they're off the map. You need to work together to get the orange to the orange exit, which is here, and then they escape the store. Purple to purple, yellow to yellow, you get the idea. And if you can do that before the timer runs out, you cooperatively, collectively win the game. Now, a couple more things I didn't mention here. Just briefly, you see these little X's up here. Once you use a sand timer, you put this X on it to show that that cannot be used again. So you can't just forever be stopping the time to communicate or buy yourself more time and flip the timer. As you use them up, those spots cannot be used again. So that makes the game a little more difficult there. I'd also like to point out that some of these cards are double-sided. If I was playing a 2-player game, and the number's down there, this is for 2 players, I would use this side, and now I'm in charge of 4 actions, okay? So sometimes you'll have a lot of actions that you're in charge of. Sometimes there's like 8 players where everybody's got one thing to do. I wouldn't personally recommend playing that way, but depending on how many players, you have more or less actions that you're in charge of for the entire game. Let's start with our likes and dislikes. For starters, I'm going to say I really love the theme. When I first heard that you have these fantasy characters, I thought, okay, great, another generic fantasy game. Like, there aren't a million of those. But then I heard the idea that they are literally shoplifting because they got their butts handed to them at the last dungeon they raided. I thought, okay, that's actually pretty funny. And it actually did make me laugh out loud for real. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. I'm glad they're not taking themselves seriously. I saw the cover and the artwork. I'm like, this is awesome. I could not wait to get it. So the theme, I think, is hilarious. I think it's very cool. I enjoy a good co-op game. That's a like. As far as the components themselves, it's kind of give and take. For everything I like, there's just a little niggling thing holding me back. For instance, okay, the timer is very good. It's big, it's beefy, it's easy to see. It doesn't tip over. Oh, of course, I almost dropped it. It does not tip over easily, which is something you want in a timer. This pawn, you're annoying me, hurry up and go pawn, it's do something. It's huge, and it makes that great sound when you tap it, so you can tell them exactly how you feel about them. The artwork is okay. It gets the job done on the tiles. The tiles are thick and good quality. The pawns, I don't know. This is going to be, this was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres. This is going to sell tons of copies, and I'm really surprised in this day and age we're not doing miniatures. At the very least, cool wooden meeples in the shape of the different characters. So that's a little bit disappointing. But to show that I'm not just nitpicking, the green pawn here, actually the paint is very thin. You can see the plain wood showing through along the base and all around the head at the top. And the purple, they're all kind of like that. They're not exactly painted great. Not to mention the symbols on them, they don't come like that. They are easy to read, yes, but you have to sticker those yourself and hope you don't mess it up because you don't get any spares, or at least I did not. So they're decent. They're not exactly thematic as far as the components go. A dislike for me, though, is I'm going to go back to that timer. I've never been a big fan of real-time games. I personally feel like it's kind of a crutch for the designer. It's saying, well, my game is too easy, people can beat it all the time, so if I put a timer and they have to rush, that'll prevent them from winning. That's okay, there we go. The game's no longer too easy because there's a timer involved. Really? I'm just not a huge fan of that, of having to rush or whatever. It's just the real-time thing doesn't quite do it for me. The other thing that I'm not a big fan of is you have this co-op game that requires a lot of working together, and again, it'd be too easy, so let's make it so you can't talk. And I just, again, feel like that's a gimmick or a crutch to lean on. When I personally get together with my friends, I like to be able to talk, and there's that no talking rule, which kind of puts a damper on game night. So there's definitely some dislikes there. The game plays quickly. It comes with a ton of scenarios, which is great. It says 15 minutes. That's about right, because of the timer and whatnot. So yeah, as far as likes and dislikes go, it's a mixed bag. Next up is strategy. Well, in a game like this, where you can't communicate, strategy is something that is going to develop over multiple games, I think. At the beginning, everybody's moving different pieces wherever they see a need for currently. Once you get to the point where everybody's on their mark and ready to shoplift, and now you just need to worry about getting to the exits, some strategy definitely develops. It's not quite so random, like, well, I guess it depends on what tile comes up next, and if we found this spot or that spot. If most of the map is revealed, and you know the exits you need to get to, we found that focus on one pawn. Otherwise, you're constantly doing this, because somebody's moving the wrong pawn or doing something. Somebody grabs, like, let's say it's green, and they start moving green, and everybody knows, I'm going to play my part, and we're going to get green out of the mall, the shopping center, whatever. And then once green goes, somebody grabs the next color, and once they start moving that one, we know that, okay, our next focus, we're getting yellow out of here. And focus on getting yellow, and everybody just focuses on that. And it actually worked really well. We found once we started doing that, we won a lot more often. So that's just one suggestion for strategy. But otherwise, it's kind of something that the more you play, the more of a feel you get for it. Of course, the obvious strategy is know which card you have, so you know what you should be doing. Don't be like, oh yeah, well, somebody needs to move right. Oh, that's me! And then, of course, don't be afraid to use this pawn. So, that's about it. Other than that, it's just watch the warp gates, and then, of course, the extra time spots, which you'll cross out as you use them, but those are a big deal, because that's the one time you can talk. So not only is it good to keep an eye on the clock, and maybe sometimes designate one person to be the clock watcher beforehand, just kind of take it like, for instance, here, this person has two jobs, this person has one. Then maybe, for instance, that person can also be watching the sand timer to evenly spread so we all have two jobs. But that's kind of how it works. It's a goofy, fun, light game, not super strategic, but there's some there. And finally, we have our review. Our scale here at Meeples on Meeples goes from 1, terrible game, to 5 in the middle of the road, which is, it's okay, nothing broken about it, don't love it, don't hate it, it's there. And then a 10 is amazing, you should definitely buy this. I'm going to give you my score, and then hear me out before I get all the hate. I'm at a 6.5 on this game. I really was super excited, but a few things hold me back. And again, let me remind you, on our scale, a 5 is, it's okay. There's nothing broken about the game. A 5 is just, So a 6.5 is, there's more good than bad, and definitely there is an audience for this game. I get that. I just don't think it's me. So here's what's holding me back. I already mentioned the timer, okay? I just feel like, again, like that's a crutch. How do we keep this game fast? Well, let's time them. How do we keep them from winning every time? Let's put a timer in there. And I just feel like there weren't some other mechanism or something you could have thrown in here to do that. I also previously briefly mentioned the idea that you can't communicate, or at least not verbally. You can't talk. And when I have friends over for game night, or if I'm getting my family together, it's kind of nice to be able to talk, okay? It'd be like when you're a kid, if your dad's, yeah, you can have some friends over, but just nope, no talking. Daddy's got a hangover, a headache, and you got to sit there in silence. I know, I guess you could technically say, like, okay, we can talk just as long as it's not about the game or whatever, but it gets kind of intense, and you are focusing, and there isn't a lot of talking anyway. But again, that's not what I like in my personal game night. I also mentioned, like I said, keeping with that 6.5 middle of the road. The components are middle of the road. They're decent. They're not great. The box is way oversized, by the way. I know there's an expansion coming out or just came out. It can definitely fit in here. They should have made this a much smaller game to fit on my shelves easier. So, that's where I stand. I love a good co-op game, and there is some to like about this. And having said that, I think I am going to buy the expansion to this. I've seen a little bit about it, and it does add some new things to the game that I'm hoping, because I really do want to like it. I bought this and I want to play it more, but our group all just kind of ended up thinking, well, that was interesting, and we played it a couple more times just because it was on the table and we wanted to get a feel for it, and I've played it some more since, but that's where I stand at it. It is an okay game, but it is just a 6.5. So anyway, there you have it. There's our thoughts on Magic Maze. Please don't hate too much on us, and join us next time to see what we've been playing.